Let's go ahead and hop in here. Hello, welcome. If you weren't on a little bit earlier, my name is Zach Kershensky. I lead the customer success team over here at CAT Software. Big part of my job is making sure that the folks that are using our system are comfortable and are knowledgeable about the different services that we offer. One of the really powerful tools that you can do with our software, and one of the things that people constantly tell me about, especially when they're kind of coming maybe from some other platforms or without a platform at all, is the searching capabilities within CATS. It's nice to have that database. It's nice to have those people there at your fingertips to be able to find, but the ability to go through, search, find people based off of certain criteria is very important. And one of the tools that you can use in doing so is Boolean searching. And by that, I mean using certain operators, symbols, keywords, that type of thing to narrow down your results to find what you're looking for in a more efficient and a faster, just a quicker way of doing so. I am not an expert. I will repeat, I am not an expert. I am not a computer science professor, anything like that. So some of you guys honestly probably know more than I do when it comes to Boolean searching, and that's fine. We're going to cover kind of some of the basics today. So before I hop into it too much, a couple things, just a couple housekeeping items. We do this every month, so keep an eye on our upcoming webinars article. Usually it's the first Tuesday of the month at this same time. These are recorded, these webinars, and you will receive a link to the email that you registered with tomorrow afternoon, roughly about 24 hours later. We'll get you a recording of this webinar. So if you do need to take a phone call, go grab some lunch, totally fine. You can always go back and check out the recording of this later on. This will also go up on our YouTube page. That sometimes takes a day or two to get up, but for sure, check out the previously recorded webinar section on our YouTube page. All right, so with all that in mind, let's talk about Boolean searching. Kind of a two-parter. One, we're just going to talk about some of the basic operators. Here's how you use ands and ors and nots within your searches, quotes, brackets, parentheses, whatever you call them, kind of what they mean. We'll discuss the wildcard a little bit. And then we're going to talk about how to use them in CATS. Most of the time, you're just going to be doing kind of a keyword resume search, but you can also apply these searches to specific fields within CATS. So we'll talk about how to do that. And then Boolean, on its own, there's its own standards. There's its own, sort of, expectations that you have when using those terms, those operators. But with CATS, there's a few quirks, as with anything. So we're going to talk about maybe some unexpected things, or some, why does it look like this? Why is this maybe not giving me the results I would expect? Over the years, myself, the support team, we've run into a few common kind of things that we can let people know, and I thought, hey, this is a good opportunity maybe to throw some of those out of there. Which reminds me, because I totally forgot, my apologies. Emily Christensen is with us today as well. She's going to be answering your questions as we go through here, as well as at the end. She leads our support team, so usually it's Jeff. He's out today, no worries. As you type those questions into the chat or the questions section, Emily will be answering those today. So big thank you to Emily for hopping on and filling in for Jeff today. All right, we have wasted a good 5 minutes already. Let's go ahead and hop in and talk about what we're going to talk about. So when we use Boolean operators, what we're talking about, it's named after this guy, George Boole, a British mathematician, 1815 to 1864. So that's why Boolean is used. There you go. There's your history lesson for the day. I learned that as well. So the first Boolean operator we're going to talk about is using AND. So for example, if I'm searching over my database and I'm looking for HTML and CSS, Only resumes that contain both of those search terms are going to be returned. So if there's a resume out there that says, oh yeah, I learned HTML, but they don't talk about CSS, it's not going to come through. They talk about CSS, they don't talk about HTML, same story. This is a good way to narrow your results. You know, best practice usually when searching is to start with kind of a wide number, a large number, and then kind of narrow that down by adding, you know, more or less search terms and filters and things of that nature. So again, pretty simple. And operators, if you type in a keyword and then and this, and this, and this, it doesn't just have to be 2 words, but again, when you use ands, everything has to be a match to be returned. The opposite of that is or. So given that example, if I flip it around and I say HTML or CSS, it's going to give me the ability to search on more than one keyword at a time. And as long as one of those is a hit, that's going to come back as a result within your search. So that's going to be a way to expand your search results using ors as opposed to ands. Nots are another way to narrow your search results. So, you know, let's say I'm really looking for software engineers, but I also have, for some reason, some aerospace engineers or like mechanical engineers in my database. I could type in the word engineer, but not aerospace. So any resumes that contain the word aerospace in this example would not come through as a result. Again, that's another good way to narrow your search results based off of certain terms that you may or may not want to appear. Fourth one out of the 5 we're going to talk about are quotation marks. So in this example, Java developer. Only resumes that contain those 2 keywords in succession will be returned. So if it contains Java alone, it's not going to come back. If it contains developer alone, it won't come back. If it contains Java in one place and it contains developer in another place, still won't come back. This is, I need these 2 keywords right next to each other to be returned you know, with the search results. Again, these are just very, very basic, like 2-word examples. Feel free to throw in as many words as you want, but just keep in mind that it has to be an exact match with whatever is between those quotes to come back as a search result. And one thing that's worth noting, check out that very last bullet point. By default, including terms in a search without quotation marks will result in an or search. I'm going to hop back over to cats after we go through these 5, and we'll go through examples of each of these. But that is one thing to keep in mind, and it sort of depends on, you know, what platform you're working through sometimes as far as how it works. With cats, if I were to just type in Java developer without any quotes, that's going to be an or search. So if it concludes Java or developer, that's going to come through. It's not an and. I know there's some systems out there potentially that, you know, the default is an and. With cats, the default is an or. So something to keep in mind. And finally, we're going to talk about parentheses, brackets, whatever you want to call them. So example I used for this one, you know, web developers, Java developers, those are, you know, in this result, in this search, that's who I'm looking for. I'm not a math guy. Maybe that's not why I'm not a developer, but some of you may or may not remember like your order of operations, right? And parentheses come first when you're doing those equations. Same kind of concept here. So what you put in those parentheses is going to be kind of considered its own like top level thing when you're running your search. So in this example, if I put web or Java in parentheses and developer, I'm running an and search, but I'm sort of combining those first 2 terms to say they need to be a developer, but if it says web and developer, or if it says Java and developer, that's going to come back as a search result. And this is where you can really start to kind of combine add more keywords here, add fewer here, ands and ors. You can really start to combine your search to either expand or narrow your results as you see fit. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through those 5 really quick and sort of give you some examples of how you can use those in CATs. And I'm going to go back on my end here so I can use those examples. Okay, so we started off with an and search. Again, very, very basic. Within CATs, keep in mind there's a couple ways to search. So just a quick review. Typically where you want to start when you're doing an overall kind of like sourcing or like qualifying search is start right here where it says search this grid. Because again, that's going to look at the candidate's resume. It's also going to look at, the majority of the standard fields that's on the candidate profile. So if I type in HTML or, oops, we're on and, getting ahead of myself, and CSS, and I just saw a question come through there. Operators are best used when capitalized. So best practice is to capitalize your ands and ors and nots when you're punching those into CATs here. And absolutely keep in mind, if you guys aren't using this, over to the left of the candidate name, you'll see that candidate preview icon. That's where you're going to see these items highlighted for the search terms that you're looking for. There is a little bit of a quirk with that when we talk about items in quotes, which we'll address here in a little bit. But as you can see, HTML and CSS is a search that I ran here. And this first one that I'm bringing up has both of those in place. I've got 34 results. The other example I used was HTML or CSS. Again, this is the way to expand your results. So here I'm going from 34 up to 60 resumes. So I've got 26 more people in there that have one or the other. That gives me 60 results, whereas before I just had 34 because those are the people that had the ands. All right, so the example I used before when we're using the nots was engineers. So again, on this test database, I've got 58 people, you can see down here in the bottom right, that have engineer somewhere in their resume. But again, I'm looking for software engineers. I'm not looking for, mechanical engineers or aerospace engineers. So if I say engineer, not aerospace, and I just use that as because I can see this very top one here, right? I'm sure Corey's a great person, but that's not what we're looking for this particular job. So I'm going to type that in there, hit return. And now I went from 58 down to 56. So again, as you can see, I had a couple of people in there that were aerospace engineers. So, we're going to go ahead and exclude them. All right, I'm just kind of looking over the questions over here. Let's see if we can combine a couple of them. So not aerospace, not mechanical. You can. So those can be combined because we went from 56 down to 51. So now there were 5 other mechanical engineers that were in that space. So yeah, keep in mind, most of these results that I'm showing you guys are just kind of 1 or 2 very basic keywords, just to give you the basic example. But, using the ands and the ors, and especially getting into the quotes and the parentheses, that's where you can absolutely start to combine those searches to create some nice long Boolean strings that you can go back and save and reapply each time. So yes, you can include a couple, multiple knots within those searches. All right, so let's talk about quotation marks. Again, by default, CATS is going to be an or search. So if I type in Java developer I've got 102 results. Because again, that's searching for candidates that have Java or developer within their resume. But if I throw in those quotes, it's going to look for Java developer in succession. Now we're down to 6. And again, keep in mind, guys, these titles that we're seeing here, these aren't necessarily what's being matched. What we're really looking for is within the resume itself, it's hitting on these terms. And some of you guys are thinking what I'm thinking here too, and that's one of the quirks I'm going to mention, where like Java itself is highlighted here. We'll talk about that. That's one of the quirks. So I appreciate the attention to detail, guys. We will absolutely talk about that. As we hop over to the last one I talked about was parentheses and brackets. So again, I've got 6 people that are Java developers. Maybe I want to find some web developers or Java. So again, it's looking for either the word web or Java. And again, I'm going to pop in and instead of an or. Now I'm down to 58. So even right there was a really good example of it defaulted to an or search until I put the word and in. Because now it went from 160 down to what, 58. So again, just a few very basic examples. Keep in mind when we're searching right here, within a candidate profile, any attachment that we consider to be a resume is going to be searched. So if you have multiple documents on there that are considered a resume, it's going to be searched here, which comes into play when we talk about one of the quirks here in just a moment. All right, one more thing I wanted to run by you guys. Since I guess technically it's not an operator, but it pretty much is the wildcard. So wildcard searches are also super, super useful when you're going through your database, doing those qualifying searches within CATS. A wildcard just acts as like a placeholder when you want maybe different forms or just different sort of characters at the end of the word. So in this example, it says develop, and then it has that asterisk at the end of it. So if I type in develop asterisk, resumes that contain the word develop and then sort of anything else after it are going to be returned. Again, this is another good way to expand your results. One of the things that I sort of learned along the way too, this is also a really good way to account for like weird like misspellings or like typos that might be in someone's resume. So kind of keep that in mind. We'll hop back over into CATS. All right, so again, I'm just going to type in develop, and then put the wildcard, easy for me to say, character down here at the end of it. Now, if I bring up that resume preview, again, we're going to see highlighted. This is a hit because it says development. It says developed ED. So developer, development, developing, develops, anything like that. As long as we've got sort of that base thing that it's looking for, and then, you know, kind of whatever happens after that, that's going to be returned as well within your search results. And again, that can be combined with an and, with an or, with a not. That's another tool, you know, that you can put in your tool belt as far as searching within CATS. All right, there are a number of questions coming through. Let me see if I can answer a few of these. So yeah, we talked about the quotes. I mentioned earlier that the operators, typically best practice is to capitalize those. So capital A-N-D, capital O-R, if you're using ands and ors. Again, we sort of talked about combining the searches. You can combine your ands and ors and nots. You have multiple ands, you have multiple nots, that type of thing. One of the questions came through, is the search returning resume text only or the LinkedIn profiles you might have downloaded? I mean, typically those are one and the same. So if you're bringing in folks from LinkedIn, what we'll do is we'll create a PDF document that is a capture of their LinkedIn profile at that time. So, you know, if those keywords are listed within that document that we consider to be a resume, that's what's going to come through in those results. So one thing that is, while we're talking about the wildcard operators, one place that sort of comes into play a little bit can be with locations, or even just using Boolean search, you know, in general. I'll say this with the caveat that best practice usually in CATS, if we're searching by location, let me clear what I'm working on here. You know, typically we recommend let's do a radius search. So that's one where I'm going to say we're going to add a filter, and let's say, you know, zip code is within 50 miles of blank, and I throw in a zip code. But sometimes you don't always have zip codes on those candidates that come through. So maybe I just want to like combine a couple of states. So what I could do, I'm gonna run a search for candidates whose state contains, and then I can use Boolean operators within this specific field search as well. And so I could say state contains MN, and I just like to throw in quotes here too. Or Minnesota, or, and then I'm just gonna say like MIN asterisk, because maybe they spelled something, you know, kind of funky through there. So now in the state field, I'm going to capture people that both have MN or they have like the entire thing spelled out. Or if they just typed like MINESOTA, for example, that's still going to capture those people. So, you know, kind of keep in mind what we were looking at before was based off of, I'm going to search on the candidate's resume. This is specifically this one field with the candidate state. I can run Boolean operators there as well. And this isn't necessarily Boolean related. However, keep in mind, you can save your searches. And so some of these search terms can be, you know, kind of lengthy, especially the more you do this and the more you get kind of that special sauce of this term matched with this one, with this excluded, and that type of thing. So let's just say I wanted to search Java and CSS, not, I don't know, that's probably a terrible search. But if I didn't want to type that in every single time, what I can do is save this. And I'm just going to say, yeah, we're going to call that ZK38. And so now if I go ahead and I clear all this stuff, I can come back to it, hit that drop down. I'm going to search ZK38 and boom, there's my Minnesota person. For some reason that doesn't have HTML, even though they have Java and CSS. So again, you can really work to build those strings, save them, and come back to them later on. All right, so I'm going to open this up for a Q&A at the end, as we do, but there are a couple quirks within CATS that I did want to address for you guys. And based off the questions that I'm seeing, I think this will actually touch on a couple of those. So let's, you know, again, we're kind of hopping back and forth between the PowerPoint and CATS. So all right, we'll talk about a few quirks within CATS. So one of those is when you use quotation marks, the search is still going to run as you would expect. So with that Java developer example that I used, you are only going to get search results that contain Java developer somewhere within that candidate's profile, whether it's their resume, whether it's one of the standard fields that's in there. However, the keyword highlighting that you see sometimes doesn't exactly match the search that you're running. The Boolean operators aren't quite as well as defined or refined rather as some of those operators that you're running. You're still going to get the results. The keyword highlighting, can potentially be a little bit off. So as an example, oops, let me hop back. I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about here. And a couple of people mentioned it earlier on when I was running that search, so kudos to you guys. Java developer is the search that I'm going to run. And as a few of you guys said, look right here. It just says Java. It just says Java. Why am I getting this search result that just says Java when I type that thing in quotes? And our response to that is, you're still getting the right search results. Because look right here, boom, there it says it, Java developer. This person would not come up in your search results if that keyword didn't appear. Unfortunately, the keyword highlighting, again, it doesn't work exactly as you would expect with the Boolean search that's being run. But know that the results that you're getting do match. Just kind of a bummer sometimes that the keyword highlighting doesn't work exactly in sync with it. So again, just one of the little quirks, but kind of keep that in mind. Another question that came through, and I don't have a great example of this, but wildcard searching is best used at the end of a word. From a technical standpoint, you can start a wildcard search. You can start a keyword with a wildcard, but think of it this way. Let's say I type in develop and then an asterisk. What it's going to do, the first thing that search is going to do is it's going to look for develop. And then from there, the results that it has left, it's going to kind of do the wildcard thing and find anything else that comes through. If I put an asterisk first and then type in a few characters, it's going to have to consider everything that's in the database to start with, and then kind of narrow it down from there. So from like a processing standpoint, from a computationally expensive standpoint is sort of the phrase I was given. A lot tougher, and it's going to take you a lot longer, and it's just not best practice in general to start a wildcard search with that asterisk. Best practice is, let's try to restructure it. Let's find a little bit of what you're looking for, and then throw in the wildcard afterward. Hope that makes sense. And then one last quirk, on those not searches. When using not, keep in mind all resumes on a candidate profile are being searched. Let's say there's someone that's been in your database for a while. You've got like 3, 4, 5 different resumes from them at this point over the years. What CATS does is it sort of searches each of those documents individually. It kind of treats them as their own instance, if you will. And so let's say I'm running a search where I'm saying, okay, I'm looking for engineers, but I do not want any aerospace engineers. So I'm running a search that says not aerospace. you've got a candidate in your system that started off as a software engineer, and then he made his way to the aerospace world. So his most recent resume that you got from him like last month says, I'm an aerospace engineer now. But he has 4 other resumes on his profile that does not, that, you know, he wasn't an aerospace engineer yet. Again, one of the things that CATS does, it's not, you know, it's not perfect, but these are kind of the search rules that we have in place. It's going to say, well, hey, here's these 4 other resumes, or let's not even use that example. Let's just say they have 2. They have 2 resumes. They have one that you got a while ago. They have one that you got, you know, last week that says they're an aerospace engineer now. CATS will still see that, hey, here is this document that is a resume that says they're an engineer, and it does not say aerospace. Again, that's that document that you got, you know, a few years back. You know, in that instance, that person is going to come up as a result. So, you know, when you're going into those not searches, again, it's not perfect. It's just one of those little kind of quirks along the way. So just kind of keep in mind, you might hit some of those, especially the bigger database you're in, the bigger your database is, and especially when you're looking at candidates that have multiple resumes on their profile. Sometimes it's good practice just to kind of take a look at your candidates and then say, hey, look, if this person's more than X amount of years old, either, you know, let's get rid of them or let's not consider them in my search results, that type of thing. All right, cool. There are so many questions coming through. This is awesome. That is all I have for the pre-prepared, easier for me to say, stuff. So I'm going to pause just a second. Emily, thank you so much for you're doing a lot of work this afternoon. You didn't know what you signed up for. She's getting those questions out to you. I'm going to take a break for just a moment, grab a drink of water, and I will come back on and I will answer some of these questions as well. So thank you so much for sending those through. We will answer them here momentarily. All right, that's enough of a break. So let's hop in here, answer a few of your questions. Had a couple of them come through. As far as like the scope of today, we're kind of trying to focus a bit more on just using Boolean search within CATS and kind of how that works. We did there's a couple different videos and webinars out there that go in depth on searching within CATS, but definitely a couple important things to know that, you know, when you are running these searches. So I can cover that in brief here. Overall, when you type into search this grid, again, it's going to search any documents on that candidate's profile that are marked as a resume. Really, really easy way to do that is, you know, if you hop into CATS in this attachment section, you're going to have this drop down over here. Oops. Haha, I'm not sharing my screen. I caught that before anybody yelled at me though. So I guess that'll small win for me today. All right, so if I hop into CATS, You've got, your attachment section. If the document was created because of, or I'm sorry, if the profile was created because of that document, it's automatically a resume. So it's not like a manual thing 99% of the time. You'll hit this little drop down and you can see is resume. So if that box is checked, that is being searched as a part of Search This Grid, as well as any of the primary fields within a CATS profile. So if we're looking at, title and email and name and address and things like that, that's going to come through. A couple of things that are not searched are applications. So job applications that were filled out are not searched in this space, as well as the majority of emails. So like emails that were sent, like email conversations, that type of thing. Truth be told, there's not a great way to search that as is. So yeah, awesome. Very, very, very good questions. And yeah, just a reminder, the webinar is recorded, and this is going to go out 24 hours from now. You'll receive a link to this recording to the email that you registered with. We're also going to put it up on our YouTube page. Typically that happens before the end of the week. All right, just clicking through a couple of them here. So best practices for combining filters and Boolean searches. It's kind of one and the same. So I kind of mentioned before, what we do, you can run those Boolean operators within your individual field searches. You can also run them in sort of like the overall where it says search this grid. So, typically what we'll do is, let me start with developer here. And then I'm sitting on 82 candidates, but I could say, okay, the job itself is within Minneapolis. So let's find folks that are within 60 miles of downtown Minneapolis. Now that took me from 80 something down to 11. And then you can add another search filter on top of that. You can add another search filter on top of that. So typically best practice is to start, kind of big, throw in your Boolean string here if you really want to start digging into like keywords and things of that nature. From there, start to add individual filters for things like location or, any of your custom fields that you've got built in can be brought up through here. There's a lot of different stuff that you can do based off of those field searches. And again, that's going to be, by default, everything is going to be an and when you combine search filters. So I'll repeat that. When you're typing just in here, if I were to say developer Java, that's by default, that's an or search based off of what we talked about before. So any resumes that contain developer or Java will come through here. But when I add these search filters, each one of these is going to act as an and. So adding those filters is a way to narrow down your search results. So it would be zip code is within 50 miles of Minneapolis, and their title is this, and they're willing to relocate, as you sort of add different parameters to those different field searches. So again, multiple terms here is an or, but each filter that you add counts as an and search. Easy for me to say as we go through there. All right, and I had one question at the end here. Can you create lists from your saved searches? You can. A saved search kind of acts as a list on its own. We call it a dynamic list. So if I were to bring up that search that I had before, that saved search, right, where it said ZK38, you're going to rerun that search each time you bring that up. So this afternoon, if I were to get another Minnesotan that does Java and CSS but not HTML, the next time I run that search, it's going to bring them up. If I want to take my list here, we'll just bring up a different saved search. So I've got like 30 people here. Creating just like a static list from this, totally possible. That kind of dives more into our actions functionality within CATS. So I've got 30 people displayed here, and what I want to do is add them to a list. And again, I can add them to an existing list, or I can create a new list from here. And then, once that's done, I can hop over into my lists on the left and bring those 30 people up at any time. But keep in mind, that's a static list. Like that list is not going to automatically update if new candidates are added to your system. Whereas a dynamic list is basically a saved search. Each time you bring that up, it's going to re-query your database and add any additional results. Saved searches are pooled together. So if one user if one user saves a search, other users in your system will be able to go and pull that result actually. So yep, that is a shared functionality. I had a question, how would you search a pay rate or salary range? A lot of that is going to depend on how you get that into your system. So, most of the time that's not going to be on someone's resume. So, typically typing it in here isn't going to be a great way to do so. There's a desired pay. There's a current pay. Again, this is sort of those may be custom fields that are built into this particular database. I can let you know if I hop over here. But more specifically, whether it's a custom field or not, that is going to be a field specific search. And so, again, we're kind of straying away from the Boolean topic of today, but again, any field that's contained within a specific candidate database, or any field that's within a specific candidate record, any candidate record can be brought up here. And so you could say something like current pay, and then typically that's going to be a number field, so you can throw in a range there, as an example. All right. All right, cool. So I think that's, we're kind of trickling down here, and I want to be respectful time-wise. Typically, we keep these at about 45 minutes. Cool. Well, if you're, we have a list of these questions that have come through. Some of them aren't necessarily for the general audience here. We will absolutely get back to you if you answered a question and it was not answered over the webinar here, or if Emily didn't get it. So we are going to wrap things up for today. Again, just kind of a reminder, as you guys are going through CATS, please be aware and use this to your advantage. That support menu, hit the question mark. Our knowledge base, our training videos are very, very good resources to learn a little bit more about the system as you go. Most of these training videos are, again, 2, 3, 4 minutes long at the most. If you do go to our main YouTube page, click on playlists, over here at recorded webinars, you can see sort of the full list. So if you want to hop into more searching stuff, not necessarily Boolean related like we talked about today, there's one here. We talked pretty in depth about lists a while back. So these are sort of like the long form versions of the 2 or 3 minute videos that we have as an introduction. So please use those to your advantage. They're really, really helpful, and actually we work on those quite a bit over here. And then of course, in that knowledge base, just start typing in the word webinar, and you'll see a link to our upcoming webinar articles. TBA for the next topic, but that's going to be, again, first Tuesday in April. We will get that out there. So All right, Emily, thank you so much for hopping in today, filling in for Jeff, taking some of those questions. If your question was not answered, we will absolutely get back to you. And that is going to wrap things up for today. We'll see you next